Welcome back to CultureHUB TV. Most people will be able to relate to mental health issues in some way or another. So today's episode has a special focus on mental health, and I'm going to be joined by Warriors of the Dystotheque frontman Jonny McAllister, who talks openly about his own experiences of mental health, including depression and addiction, and also Alan Heron from the Samaritans.
Right, starting with you, Jonny, you feature in the current issue of CultureHUB. You know, I did the interview with you talking about your experiences of mental health and the journey that you went through to get to the place where you are now.
Yes.
So could you just recap on the experience for anybody who actually hasn't read the article?
Yeah, basically from the age of 11 when my mum passed away, just for the next lot of years I suffered a little bit of depression and just it rolled on from there. As I got older I got into drugs, and I just seemed to block it out for a few years and didn't really think too much of it. I didn't really realise that that's what it was, the depression and that there, but it started setting in over the years. And then a few years later started getting into music, and went on to DJ all around the world with the likes of Prodigy and Happy Mondays, and had a brilliant time, great career. But during them times I started doing more and more drugs and having less and less fun, and the time started getting darker and darker because the drugs became less fun and more, they took control more of me, and basically made the depression darker, and the anxiety got worse, and got lonelier in general, and just couldn't really function very well, and just didn't do much other than stay in the house or go and do gigs. That continued for a lot of years, where I would have been just going out and doing gigs 4 or 5 days, coming home, sleeping for 2 days, and then that turned into not sleeping for those 2 days and staying in and doing drugs, as well as the drugs on the road. And then I started missing gigs, slowing down DJing, and just basically the drugs took over to a point where they were pretty much going to kill me, and I wanted them to kill me. Very, very dark days, and it all came to a head in 2011 or 2010. Sorry, at the Christmas, I came home for Christmas from England. I was actually in England at the time. Came home and said to my dad that I was planning on moving back in January for a few months to try and get some sort of process into my life, just to try and get the drugs to stop, although I didn't have much hope that was going to happen, and the drugs and the depression was getting to a point then where I needed something to change. So that was fine, and he'd agreed I was going to come back at the end of January. I went back to England on New Year's Eve, and told my friend that I had a housemate, a good friend of mine as well, who's also in the business, that I was moving back on the 30th of January, and that things were getting put in place, and that was all well and good and stuff. And then tragedy on the 6th of January, he had an overdose and had a heart attack in the bath and drowned. And
that was at a point where he was actually wanting to clean up as well,
yeah.
and
100%
get away
at that
from
time.
the depression and the madness.
It had got just bad. So he had a misfortunate accident and had a heart attack in the bath, and unfortunately I found him, and that was that. And although as much as it was unfortunate, it's been a turning point in that I came home 2 days after that. I buried him and came home, and somehow found the strength to not do drugs since. I've been home 7 years now, and sought the help that I needed from a doctor, and went out and got put in contact with adult psychological services and got treated for PTSD, went through CBT, which I haven't finished. It took me a lot longer than it should have, but it's an ongoing process. And just basically found that by reaching out and talking to those that were willing to listen, that the help was there to make it better anyway,
And would you say from, because obviously, like, you mentioned your mother dying was probably the first traumatic experience that you had. So between that and then going into this hedonistic lifestyle and then experiencing the death of your friend and, you know, dealing with that, do you think those mental health problems that you were getting, like the depression and the anxiety, did that stem from your mother dying? Or did it continue, or did you block it out, or did it get worse when you were in the, you know, were you feeling okay when you went over to England DJing? What point did you feel, I'm feeling this, or where do you think it started?
I think it did begin around my mum passing away, but I was that young that I didn't maybe know what it was, and like you're talking 1985, 86 sort of time. So maybe that wasn't as like there wasn't as many adverts on TV. There was no internet, so maybe we weren't aware of it as much as we were now. And you know, nobody went and talked to their doctor maybe, or talked to their friends, which is unfortunate, you know. But I suppose that's the world that we live in now. It's more there for you to deal with, and at least people are talking about it now. So I'd say I didn't really realise what was going on at the time, and then I was young, so I tried to block it out and stuff. But then as the more drugs I've done and stuff and that there, and as the older it got, the darker it got, you know, and the life changes, doesn't it? You know, you're not out riding your BMX anymore, you have bills to pay and stuff, so, you know, life sort of starts taking another turn, and you maybe well, I definitely know that I started getting darker then, you know, and then, as I say, the drugs definitely took it to another level, and maybe beyond what it would ever have been. The anxiety from the drugs has just been massive.
Yeah.
You know?
And would you have been aware of, obviously we've got Alan here from the Samaritans here as well, but would you have even been aware or thinking about, you know, reaching out to, you know, an organisation like that at that time, or would you, you know, just kind of consumed?
Well, I was definitely 100% aware of the Samaritans. I think everybody was. That would have been about the only thing that we would have known of in those days, would have been the Samaritans, you know. But I didn't see that it was a problem. I didn't really think I had a problem. I just thought I was just unfortunate. You know, my mum died. You're never going to be happy about it, and that's just going to be life. But I didn't really realise that there was a problem. And maybe if I had realised then, I might have had a hell of a lot of a better job of getting ahead of it then, rather than letting it manifest over the years.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that was definitely the way it went.
Like if you had realised that there was actually somebody who you could talk to identify and help you,
definitely.
or just listen,
Yeah.
you know, in any way, just listening.
Yeah, things only got worse for them years. So if I had spoke about it earlier, I maybe could have nipped a lot of it in the bud, you know. So yeah, I think it would have been a lot better if I had reached out younger. Like.
And tell me, from your memories, what was your darkest period? Like, can you describe how you actually felt, or what was like a defining moment for you, like in your feelings and your memories, like through everything that you experienced?
During my time in England, when I was DJing, of going out and just being on the road and coming home, while you were out there, it was all fun and games, and everybody loved you and this, that, and the other. But the second you closed that door and went in home, it was the darkest of times. You know what I mean? Everybody else was at work. You know, so you were home on a Monday and a Tuesday, and you had a couple of days to get your head together to go back out again. But nobody was around, and you were having really dark thoughts and dark times, and it just brought everything back to you that all you're doing is pretending. And papering over the cracks with drugs and stuff, and then coming home and it being dark. So yeah, lots and lots of dark days throughout that time. So from complete highs to major lows in them days, you know. So yeah. And
then after your friend died and you returned back here, that's probably when you kind of hit rock bottom.
Yeah.
And how was the process of recovery for when you came back? Like, how long has that process been, and how was that? Like, you know, what were your experience, and what support networks did you have, or how did you deal with it?
I just came back and threw myself straight into work. I used to work on the boats. I was a chef in P&O, so I got to go back onto there. I basically had an interview 2 days after I came home, and I had to go and do a lot of training, sea survival and all, which I didn't think I had in me, but I just done it and got involved in it, and done that. And then I'd done that for 6 months, and that's all it was, that contract. And then I moved down here to Derry, and and just basically got the support I needed from my doctor and that down here, and put in contact with the psychological services and that. But at that time, I hadn't listened to music for over 2 or 3 years because I associated it with the dark days and what led me down the wrong path, to the extent to where it got really bad.
Because you were very heavily into the music.
Yeah.
You know, that was your passion, that was your job, your career before
Yeah,
that.
so I seen that as the thing that was going to take me back down that road again. So I didn't know if I was strong enough at that time to do it. But having been through CBT and with the PTSD and stuff like that there, and spoke to the right people, I was able to sort of get it in my head that you know, you're making this all wrong here. You know, this isn't the music. It was strictly, you know, you chose to do what you done. So I got back into my music and formed a band and found that music really has helped me, and gardening as well. I became a keen gardener the last couple of years. Which
you can do my garden.
Yeah, no, I'm not a labourer. But yeah, I don't like cutting grass. Yeah, but yeah. So that's, I don't know. It's weird what happens, isn't it? Really, you can't really put a finger on it. But that's it. That's what's done it. And I love my music again. My band's doing really well. We've got an album out. It's getting really great plaudits. And
so you took the music as a little bit of a therapy, and you went and formed your band now, which is Warriors of the Dystotheque. Yeah. I said that right?
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah.
Yeah. Dystotheque. Dystotheque.
That's correct. Yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah.
And so your band is quite unique in the way that it's faceless. You know, it's a unique concept. But like I say, you went and took that as like almost like a therapy in a way. Like, you know, you got back into it. How has that influenced your feelings and your music making now to where you're at now?
Well, it's let me see that I can do what I love again, and not have to worry about it leading me down the wrong path. So it is totally therapeutic like now. And I've seen, the other thing is as well, I was very anxious. We are faceless, and the first reason for being faceless was that I was hiding away, and I didn't want anybody to know. I didn't tell anybody who it was at the start. We released the first EP without me telling anybody that I was behind it, and it was well received. The other reason being that we don't exist. We exist in New York, 2 guys in New York, 1 guy in Coventry, and myself here. So it's all recorded online, so we can't play live together. We've never been in the same studio. It's all done online. So that's the other reason for being faceless. But yeah, it's definitely helped me, and we've 4 EPs out, all been received well on major radio, 6 Music, Radio 1, all BBC Ulster, Foil, every RTE, Album of the Week last week. So that has made me realise that I wasn't just in it for the laughs sort of thing, and I've learned something, and I've got something to offer from the music again, and I also know that now that there's a road that I don't cross.
Yeah, so it's like, it's kind of your passion now, and it's your vocation.
Yeah.
And do you channel a lot of your experiences into your music making now, do you think?
Yeah, a lot. Yeah, I suppose I do. I don't think I do, but I do. It's the thing that I turn to, you know, out of everything, and it always will be, I think now. It's there. It's something that I turn to, no matter what. Like, it could be 3 or 4 months that I don't go near it, and but I'll be working away and things in my head and stuff. So it's always going to be there, and it's the one thing I know, and it's just a pity I got the wrong way around. Well, I got involved in the wrong things, but unfortunate. But hopefully, there's always going to be somebody coming along that's going to be in the same position as me, and hopefully they just pay heed to the pitfalls, and they are pitfalls, and nobody's going to do drugs and not get affected by them, and that's the bottom line. No matter who you are or what you think, you have to show respect for it, and if you want to be serious about it for your health mainly, and the health of the other people around you, you need to be aware of it, you know, and treat music like you treat being a lawyer. Not all lawyers are out wrecking every night, and, you know, just hypothetically speaking, it's not just because it's music doesn't mean to say you have to be taking drugs all the time, but that's the point that people get caught up in. So.
Yeah. And what advice would you give to anybody who is experiencing, you know, maybe some of the things that you suffered, like from the depression or anxiety, or maybe they're blocking out, like, or not facing up to something that's happened. Like, you know, what advice, after going through so many years of this battle, what would you say?
Definitely to speak to somebody, because I spent years not doing it, and it got worse and worse and worse, and what I didn't think was depression was major depression and darkness and thoughts of suicide and anxiety. And only these last couple of years since I've started talking to people, I feel like I've got a grip of it, and can see a little bit of light at the end of the tunnel, you know, and found out that people do actually care and want to help you, and the stigma needs to get broke down and stuff. There's so many people out there that can help you, and there's so many people that want to help you, and there's even since we've done the interview, there's like 3 or 4 organisations have contacted me, like Music Minds Matter and Help Musicians NI, and people like that are all getting in contact now and want to just speak to me and to offer me help. And from that, I like to be able to help somebody else. I would like somebody else to listen to this here and think, yeah, that if they need the help, they can get it. I don't want to come across that I'm not grateful and thankful for the career that I had, because I think that, you know, some people might think that as well, but that's not the case. I'm totally grateful and thankful of what I've done, and that I just got it wrong. And you know, regardless I haven't had mental health issues, the drugs aren't going to help. It's for anybody, so they just need to reach out to whoever and find somebody to help them, like, you know, and they will, because there's plenty of help. There's more help now than there ever was. You know, absolutely. You know, if there was the same amount of help now as there was maybe back in 1985, and the stigmas have been broke down that little bit more now, I think maybe I would have been in a better position as well. So we just hopefully somebody else gets the help they need from it.
And just finally, because your new album and everything like that, it is a testament to you overcoming everything that you've been through. How can we find your album? What's your album's name, and how can we find that?
The album's called Madness in the Method, which is
that's a good title in itself.
I think it suits the story, you know, and the fact that we don't exist as well, the way we wrote it. Yeah, it's on Bandcamp under Warriors of the Dystotheque, or it's available in majority of major record stores on vinyl. You get it on iTunes, Spotify, the usual outlets. It's all there. So yeah. So
perfect. Great.
You can follow us on Facebook or Twitter, whatever. You can find out plenty about us there. So.
No, that's brilliant. Thank you so much for telling us your
Thanks
story again, Jonny.
Thank you.
Welcome to CultureHUB magazine. You can find us online, in print, and with our own TV show. With each issue, we will bring you music, arts, entertainment, and thought-provoking topics, taking you on a cultural journey throughout Northern Ireland. Look out for our glossy, free, bi-monthly magazine distributed across Northern Ireland, and our monthly TV show on MBTV. CultureHUB, eclectic Northern Ireland for you. Alan, from listening to Jonny's experience, how common do you think that actually exists? Well, certainly in your capacity, like within the Samaritans, to your knowledge, like how common do those kind of, the depression and the anxiety exist? And also, you know, how much do you think it is actually kind of drug related or addiction based related? You know, do you have any kind of insights on that?
Well, I think the story is very similar. The circumstances are quite different, obviously, for many people who are in a depressed state, and it can be a huge amount of things. It can be family related. We take calls that are family related, they're relationship based. There could be a common theme these days is people who are wrestling with their sexuality, for example, wanting to maybe to come out, you know, as gay or as lesbian. So, you know, we work closely with those organisations now that we wouldn't have done maybe 30 years ago as an organisation, because these things were different. So there's a number of factors involved when a person is not feeling in a good place, whether it's depression or whatever it is. And that's why we like to try and if you could think of a ruler, at one end of the ruler, you have absolute happiness in your life, everything's going well, and then at the other end, you're feeling such a black place, you want to take your own life. Well, we don't want to wait necessarily to the end of that. We'd like to come down the road a bit somewhere, and that's why we always try to encourage people. See, if you're talking to me, how are you coping with things? Just so you don't feel this, if a person doesn't look good, we would be as bold nowadays to say, your work colleagues, your family, how you doing? Even the way people say, how are you doing? Do they really mean how you doing? Because if you
turn a phrase or actually really want to know
exactly,
how you're doing.
Exactly. But in asking that question, you have to be prepared to listen to them, and that's the key. Listening to them, not going, don't worry about it. Yeah. Sure, or why don't you go to the doctor tomorrow? Sure, the doctor will sort it out for you. Listen, I gotta go here. That's that narrative that runs in those sort of questions that when you pose. But if we tend to say to people, if you see someone anywhere in a public place, you don't even need to know them. If you just ask them how you were doing, how are they doing, and they answered you, the response that you will get and the reaction that you will cause by listening to them is huge. Nobody knows. It can be a small thing, be a big, big thing. And the thing is, Samaritans, we don't necessarily need to know, or we won't know the outcome of that. If a person doesn't phone us again, they may carry on. That can make a difference, or it could be the beginning of them seeing through their troubles. I'm not for one moment saying just because someone phones us up that the world will become, that as a result of that 20 minutes or an hour or 2 hours, whatever, the conversation is all better. But the person might be in a better place the next day, or wherever to move forward. They might see clicking things that they can, that they may choose to do. And the other thing is, from our organisation, the good thing is that we pride ourselves in this. It's one of the cornerstones of the organisation, is that we don't give advice. We're non-judgmental. We won't say to someone, do you know what, would you think of doing this here, or why don't you do this? But we'll couch it in such a way as we'll explore options with the person. Do you remember you said that when you were young you did this, how did that make you feel? Is there something what would you do differently? And the person might go, oh no, I hadn't thought of that, and is that something you could maybe do? So they take ownership.
Like you're empowering them to, take control of their own choices.
Exactly. And that's the word choice is the key word here. The person, and you're absolutely right, empowering someone who's in a very black place is not that easy to do, and that's why we have to be careful when we're speaking to people or listening to people, or even it's face to face, because our organisation does different things. But the phone is probably the king and likely to be. The most calls come in. We get probably about 60,000 calls in a week, and those are a variety of calls. Some of them are maybe.
Is that just here in Northern Ireland,
that's
or
UK and Ireland?
That's UK and Ireland. Yes, that's a lot.
That's a lot of calls, and the good thing is it's a free call number, which is 116123. It's the best thing, personally, I've been a Samaritan for 17 years. It's the best thing we have. It trumps a lot of things, because it makes our services, our telephone service particularly, accessible to people who may not have any money. Do you know what I mean? And you'd be surprised the number of people come on. Our calls spiked around 35% about 2 years ago when we started this, 2.5 years ago. It just went boom. And it causes a problem, a nice problem to have, because we were all busy. We were busy anyway, but suddenly you were just bang, bang, bang. The calls were just, and people were getting exhausted, but that's an issue for us as an organisation, which we were ready, but not as ready as that, but we were still ready to deal with it. But we're happy to deal with it, because it means the service meant something.
Yes,
to people who needed
there are
it.
People who are reaching out and getting the help or support, or like I said, even another key word, the listening that they need, because that listening, just even if the person on the other end of the phone, this person who's taken the call from the Samaritans, even if they don't say a word, just having somebody just willing to actually listen, there's nothing more powerful, I think, than if you've got something on your mind and just verbalizing and expressing those thoughts to somebody else. that in itself, without that person giving you any feedback, but that in itself can just make so much sense in your mind of what was being cloudy before you actually verbalize it, you know, which essentially is.
I couldn't agree more with the words you just said, and that's exactly what we. You should work for us, or well, not work for us. You'd be welcomed, but that's what we tried to raise awareness. That's how we to describe our service, and we continually do that. We've done it for 64 years as an organisation, so something must be right. But at the same time, it's a. I can't stress it's a huge privilege. It's very humbling if you are talking to someone who feels like taking their own life. I mean, many people don't call us, they're not suicidal, they're in emotional distress, and some of those calls would break your heart, and that's the best thing I could say. I've taken calls along with other volunteers. I'll not go into the details for obvious reasons, but they melt your heart. I will never forget many of the calls, and I can't. When I go home after a duty, I can't say to my wife, "What do you hear? This is our call. That's out." You know, it's only within Samaritans that we have Samaritan volunteers who are leaders, and they will support if you. And this only happened last year. I had a call, and I would have been one of the volunteers because I'm experienced. I wouldn't say I was hard enough at it, but I'm able to, how to say, process it in my mind and deal with it and cope with it and place it in certain places in my mind, which I do. This time I had a leader, and he was just a few words he said to me will always remain with me, and it's just that level of support. But you need that doing the work we do, and as I said, it's very, very humbling when a person either standing in front of you, which has happened and happens, or is on the phone. You have to be very careful. But in doing that, you actually go into almost, I find, I'm speaking personally, on a personal level, I find that I hear myself saying things that I couldn't believe that I would ever say in my life. When until I became a Samaritan, I'm going, never say that. No, seriously, I mean, but it's a personal experience, and maybe the confidence that I think that I have with that person on the phone, but I have them in my hand, and I need to be careful how I respond, and the tone of my, there's so many things that are very, very important.
You have to get an understanding of their personality and their frame of mind.
Exactly.
You know, some people might be very sensitive to some things or other things, or
you will pick that up as you go along. But there's so many elements when you make that bond, and you will know that every volunteer knows it when they've got someone, and the person is comfortable with them. That's great, because that means that if they want to talk, whatever it is they want to say to you, they will say it. And as I said, there's countless times a person will say, "I've never told anyone this before," and suddenly you feel this is really something which I'm aware. I mean, you're already aware of that. But the best thing of all is volunteers. We don't obviously get paid. And
that's the key thing, is that everybody who picks up the end, is on the other end of the phone when someone calls the Samaritans, they're just volunteers.
They're volunteers.
They're
not 99%, 100%.
100%. And they're people, just ordinary people from all walks of life. And
we often have just a phrase, we're ordinary people, but we do an extraordinary job. And we would say that bullishly, because it is a job for which we're very well trained and continue to be trained every year. We update our training. And if someone wants to become a volunteer, I mean, you're talking about a 6-8 week training, and it tests people. It's deliberately, our training has never changed. The content has changed for as things happen in the world, and we need to be able to respond to them, but the level of commitment is still there. We expect the same commitment. 17 years ago when I trained, and I'm part of the selection team in our branch in Belfast, we expect people, we're not going to bring people in that they'll go in and sort of half-cocked, as the saying is.
Yes.
That's not going to happen.
They have to be dedicated, they have to be
serious. We
about
train them, but they have to care, they have to show compassion, empathy. They can't judge, they can't, we support everybody in the world, and to me, we don't actually, I say that in interviews I've done. I say that quite proudly and confidently, because we do, and I would like us actually to promote that element more, because the truth is we do. There's nobody, you know, we don't support that person, that sort of group, and that, but no, not that person, and definitely not that group. You know, they're out. You know, there's nobody. If they phone us, we support prisoners. We train prisoners in Maghaberry Prison, McGilligan Prison in Northern Ireland, and in the south as well. All the prisons have the prisoners who are trained by us. It means I can respond quickly.
Listeners?
Yes, that's it, the listener scheme. In fact, I got up to Maghaberry to do something else connected with the listener scheme. But in supporting those prisoners, we don't say, "Is that a murderer?" No, no.
Yes.
Is that a sex offender? No, no.
Yeah.
We can't. We
You
don't
have to be
support.
completely.
It's all the same.
Yeah.
And the reason, and people, a lot of people, because of what I do, people know that I'm a Samaritan, what I do, and people sometimes say, "Why do you support prisoners though?" And I go, "Well, bring it on. I'm quite happy to talk to you about that, because on the outside, society has made a judgment against those men and women and taken their liberty away from them and put them in a prison and locked them up for whatever it is. But it hasn't taken their humanity and their right to be heard."
Exactly.
You know,
They're still a human being at the end of the day.
And that's why we look at it. And, you know, I'm proud that we do that, and we continue to do that. And our prison scheme, the listener scheme, is going well within the prison. So it's hard to get volunteers sometimes, because we ask a lot, particularly women volunteers who, in my opinion, are up there. I think a lot of volunteers, more than probably you would think, are always awestruck by our women, because they go into a prison and they go into with predominantly men, and they go in maybe in a cell, maybe, you know, and you know, these are men who are alone.
Yeah, so they
for
could
a variety
potentially,
of
they
things.
could essentially be going into what some people might perceive as a very like kind of vulnerable or intimidating situation. But these women who volunteer for you,
They're
they
well
just,
trained.
they just,
Or further training become, you know, there's different aspects of what we don't send anybody in just half cocked, you know. Again,
of
you know, we
course.
don't do that.
And in terms of volunteering, is there any restrictions on who can, if somebody decided they would like to maybe train or potentially train to be a volunteer at the Samaritans?
16, or is it 18?
Yeah,
One
just
or
the age.
two.
The
Just the
age.
age.
Yeah, like, you know, it's.
I'm afraid it's 18 to 80.
Yeah,
But
and a lot
people
of people
on
potentially maybe, you know, because such a high level of empathy and such a high level of compassion and non-judgmentality has to be involved in that. Some people naturally can, you know, just have that and it bounces off them, but I would imagine that a lot of people have to have experienced, you know, maybe some kind of period of self-reflection in themselves to kind of encourage them to be a volunteer, or
Yes, we have certainly people that have
come through hard times and decided they
Oh,
want to
yeah.
kind of
Yeah.
help
We
other
have.
people because they've got the help from being in that dark time.
That's a common theme, but it could be a very light. My own reasons wouldn't have been as dramatic as that or as dark or that. It was something. My father died in 1989, and I suddenly wanted to give something back. I don't know why. Before that, I had never been want to be a volunteer in anything. I was younger then, but I was never that young. But it never occurred to me. And suddenly I thought, I was thinking of joining Cruise, which is a good charity. So we've had some connections with Cruise or Samaritans, and then the idea drifted away until 2000. That's when I joined, and it was only I knew someone within. I worked in the civil service, and I knew. Somebody told me that one of the volunteers I knew was a Samaritan. I went, "Oh, I wouldn't have thought, you know, she being a Samaritan." So I phoned her, and here I am today. So it was just wee things happen in all our lives, but to me, it's the best thing I've ever done in my life.
Yeah.
Like not a wee bit comfortably.
Yeah.
It's given me so much.
I actually think that would be something
huge.
that might be good. You know, I could see you, you know, giving a good.
You said you
Empathy
thought you were
or-
a soft heart.
I've definitely thought about down the line that
Yeah.
if I could offer it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh,
if
absolutely.
I felt
immediately.
that I had turned that corner far enough to do it, I would definitely like to do it.
Yeah.
And possibly in the music side of it, you know, because there is now things like Music Minds Matter and starting to, you know, there's a few little bits and bobs starting to open up for music more in the industry, because it's overlooked, isn't it, in the music. So I would really like to, if there was something to offer there, get into it, like down the line.
But when we were talking before, and again when I've heard it again, your story is very inspiring. I think it's It's a huge credit to you that you're able to sit here in front of a TV crew and express that. That takes a lot of courage.
Yeah, it's.
Don't underestimate that for yourself. And whatever you do in your life, the thing is to be happy. And if you're able to volunteer with whoever or do, well and good. But do it on your terms when you're ready. And I think the most important thing is your happiness, your health, and your happiness.
I am happier now than I've been than I ever remember. To be honest, even I've had happy times, but there's always been darkness there. So the darkness is gone now. Well, that's a lie. It hasn't gone, but it's at bay, and I've learned how to cope with it.
It's manageable.
And and it is the bottom line is, and I'll say it again, it's reaching out, and that's all there is to it. And that you've got to start somewhere, and it has to be with talking to somebody, because only then can you deal with it. Because you obviously can't deal with it. That's the key. You can't deal with it alone.
That's why we do. There's a range of things, there's a range of services that we provide, and a lot of people don't know that. I mean, as I said, the phone is the most likelihood, but you can also email us, you can text us, you can call into our branches, and that's always been there. But the text and email is something which I think a lot of people don't realise you can do.
Yeah.
Or you can write
and that
as
actually,
corresponding. There's a lot of things.
It's a good point to make that in the ways that people can contact you, and also who can contact you. Like, basically the Samaritans is there for everybody. It doesn't matter how small or big your problem is. It's just, if it's a problem to you, it's a problem that you can help with, or you can listen to. But it's interesting, to say about the text and the emails, because potentially that could be something that will maybe, someone might be too shy to pick up the phone, or not ready to pick up and hear a voice. But the first step, it's not as threatening, or it's not as bearing or vulnerable to send a text or an email.
Well, when we started email, which was about 12 years ago, was it maybe longer? When there's any change in any organisation, particularly some say older, more mature volunteers, and they would say, well, I don't know how to computer, how am I going to use that? So we took our time and trained those people, and then the next step coming down the road was text. And the organisation thought they done their homework well, and they thought there is a market because people do that. And were they right? And we get texts and email from all over the world because through the internet. And it's again, if people use that medium to contact you for whatever reason, then you've got to consider it. And I think we're organisations looking at instant messaging. That could be the next thing coming down.
On their phones now.
Yeah,
so,
exactly. You're absolutely right.
First thing in the morning, people wake up and take their phone, and so it's got to be that.
So, just to close off now, again, like I said to Jonny, if there was something that you could kind of give a message to people who kind of maybe are a little bit too scared to actually reach out, or they are just, maybe they're not even aware they're struggling, is there anything specific that you would say?
Well, I would say that to be aware of your own circumstances, your own mental health, your own feelings, and feelings is probably the key, because one of the things we say to people on the phone, and after we have an initial, the person's maybe explain how they're feeling, we would go down there. How did you feel about that when you told me earlier about such an event that happened? How did you feel about that? And it's surprising, if I ask you now how you feeling, you'll tell me one way or another. And if you have something you want to talk about, if you're comfortable. People tend to think, well, I wasn't feeling too bad today because I took some tablets. That in itself is telling you how they're feeling. But we will explore that by saying to people, well, how did that make you feel? What happened after that? Did you do this? Did you do that? And it brings a person along the road a bit, and to try and not break out for what's troubling them. Because at the end of the day, they've contacted us, so that's the good thing, the most important thing, that they've contacted us. But we would say, if you feel that you want to talk to somebody about anything, and it could be just the weather's bad at the minute, talk to somebody about it. But if you can't talk to someone about whatever is troubling you, whether it's your family, your friends. Look at an organisation such as Samaritans and give them a call. That's all it is. Because at the end of the day, it doesn't matter to us. What is important to us is that people who feel in need of emotional support get that emotional support. It doesn't matter whether it's through Samaritans or not, but our organisation clearly has a pedigree, it's trusted, and it's available.
That's excellent. So thank you both so much for coming in and talking so much about, like, you know, being very open and honest, and that's definitely what's absolutely needed, I think. So, so thank you very much, and hopefully somebody will kind of, you know, get something positive from that, even if it's just on the smallest level, you know, because that's the main thing. If you can relate to any of the issues or topics that have been brought up by Jonny and Alan here, you can find out at the end of the show exactly how to contact the Samaritans, and also you can follow Jonny's progress with the information provided.
What you need, I don't know. Can you feed me the bottom?
A big thank you to Lifeline, who sponsored Jonny's story in our print edition.